Alright, I need you to think about someone for a second. Picture a middle-aged man, married, 2 kids, a house in the suburbs, a job, nothing extraordinary, but functional, right? The American dream in its most generic possible version. Now picture that same man living with the most capable being in the universe. With a father-in-law who's traveled across dimensions, destroyed civilizations, and once turned himself into a pickle to avoid therapy. And this man? He still can't defend himself from a stray dog. That man is Jerry Smith. And today we're going to break down, with love and without mercy, exactly what it's like to be him. Look, there are different kinds of failures in the world. There's the failure who doesn't know they failed. That's the happiest one. No suffering, no self-questioning, they're fine. There's the failure who knows, but convinces themselves they'll turn it around. That one suffers a little, but still has hope. Also not the worst-case scenario. And then there's Jerry. Jerry is the third kind, the one who knows he failed, knows he'll probably keep failing, and still lives in this kind of perpetual optimism that's completely disconnected from reality. It's the cruelest combination possible. You don't have the peace of ignorance or the drive of ambition. You're stuck in limbo. There's an episode where the whole family goes camping on an alien planet. Jerry organized everything. He thought it'd be this reconnection moment, a chance to show he still matters. And you know what happened? Summer, his own daughter, looked him dead in the eye and said the only reason he suggested the camping trip was to feel needed. Not to make memories, not out of love. To look useful. And the most devastating part. You can see that Jerry believes her. There's no defense, no indignant reaction. He just absorbs it. Because deep down he knows she's right. There's actually a name for this in psychology. It's called self-discrepancy theory. The gap between who you think you should be and who you actually are. The bigger that gap, the harder it is to function. Jerry lives in that gap permanently. He knows exactly who he should be as a father, as a husband, as a man. And he knows exactly how far he falls short. Every single day. And the cruelest part is that he's self-aware enough to see the abyss, but not capable enough to cross it. Oh, and there's one more layer to this. In that same camping episode, when Jerry finds the unproductives, rejects from an alien civilization that Rick accidentally spawned, they become completely obsessed with Jerry. They start imitating him. They paint their chests with mud to replicate the pattern on his shirt. Jerry finally has followers. Jerry is finally a leader. They're the rejects of an alien species that shouldn't even exist. What an achievement. Okay, hold on. We need to talk about the elephant in the room, or more accurately, the drunk scientist in the room. Because there's no way to analyze Jerry's existence without talking about Rick. And not just because they're father and son-in-law, but because Rick functions as a mirror that Jerry never asked for and can never escape. Rick is, according to the show's own universe, the most capable human being that exists. He developed interdimensional travel technology. He destroyed and rebuilt civilizations. He literally traveled through the very fabric of space-time. There's no way to overstate it. And Jerry? Jerry once forgot how to change a tire. What the show does, deliberately and cruelly, is put these two characters in the same space and see what happens. And what happens is that every one of Rick's strengths amplifies every one of Jerry's weaknesses. Every time Rick solves an impossible problem in seconds, Jerry is somewhere in the background, not even understanding what the problem was. But here's the thing most people miss. This isn't just the show being cruel. It's a statement. The show uses Jerry to say something about what happens when ordinary human mediocrity gets exposed to the extraordinary. And the answer is, it doesn't hold up. It shrinks. It becomes invisible. There's an episode where we find out that Ricks from parallel universes have a collective opinion about Jerry's. They exist. They're the universe's inside joke. The Jerry mocking gets so intense it becomes a distraction, and our Rick, who already has enough contempt for his son-in-law, isn't about to let other Ricks pile on. That's not respect. That's territoriality. It's the kind of protection you extend to an object. And that brings us to the most devastating episode in the Rick-Jerry dynamic. The compassion adventure, The whirly-durly conspiracy. Morty gets worried that Jerry is so depressed he might hurt himself. So Rick, out of emotional obligation to his grandson, shows up at Jerry's miserable apartment. Jerry's half-naked, depressed, basically crying himself to sleep, and drags him on an adventure at a resort with an immortality field. Just let that sink in for a second. Rick took Jerry to a place where it's physically impossible to die, because someone was worried he might try that if left alone. But the adventure, like everything with Jerry, doesn't go well, and it builds to the most honest moment in the entire show. Rick and Jerry get caught in a trap, and Rick just unloads. You act like prey, but you're a predator. You use pity to lure in your victims. That's how you survive. I survive because I know everything. Beth's husband survived because people think, oh, what a poor sad sack. I can't stand the silent, soul-murdering scream emanating from him. I guess I'll hire him, or marry him. That's Rick. That is the single most honest moment any character has ever had with Jerry. And the part that hurts isn't the insult. It's that he's not wrong, and Jerry knows he's not wrong. I want to talk about something I think we'd all rather not think about. Rick accuses Beth of staying with Jerry out of pity. That's not me speculating. Rick says it directly. And when you pay attention to any episode with Beth and Jerry together, you start to understand why that accusation sticks so well. Beth and Jerry met in school. She got pregnant with Summer at prom. They got married. And Beth's entire life trajectory, an obviously intelligent woman, daughter of the most extraordinary man in the show, got rerouted by one night, not by choice, by consequence. Rick is pretty blunt about it. Beth had options. And according to him, she gave all of them up because she felt sorry for Jerry. Think about the weight of that. You've spent years in a relationship, and the foundation of that person's love for you might be compassion. Not admiration, not attraction, not respect, pity. And Jerry, deep down, can't completely rule that out because he knows himself. There's an episode where an alien gets trapped in Rick's basement, an alien that eats babies, by the way, which is important to mention, and gets completely fed up listening to Beth and Jerry argue upstairs. And the alien, done with it, yells that their problem has nothing to do with Rick. They hate each other, and they hate each other because they hate themselves. The divorce happens, and it's devastating in a specific way. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was just the confirmation of a truth that was always there. Beth didn't need Jerry. Jerry needed Beth. That asymmetry was always there. And what did Jerry do during the divorce? He sat in a terrible apartment, depressed, half-naked, waiting for someone to show up and care. Someone showed up. It was Rick, to check if he wasn't about to hurt himself. After all of that, Beth and Jerry get back together. And yeah, it's genuine in that messy, human way the show does so well. But what actually changed? The power dynamic didn't change. The asymmetry didn't change. You know what the showrunners say about this? That Beth and Jerry are a codependent couple. Jerry's insecurity triggers Beth's caretaker instinct. Beth's caretaker instinct triggers Jerry's dependency. It's a perfect, disturbing loop. They keep each other trapped not by the kind of love you idealized, but by the most complicated, human kind. The one that mixes need with habit, fear of being alone, with the comfort of someone who's seen your worst days and stayed anyway. That's kind of beautiful, honestly. I'll admit it. It's also a prison. Let's talk about parenthood, because this is where things get really complicated. Jerry loves his kids. That's not up for debate. But loving someone doesn't mean you're what they need. And the show makes it pretty clear that Jerry, as a father figure, is essentially invisible. Morty loves you, Jerry. But Morty has spent years traveling the multiverse with Rick. He's watched civilizations collapse, buried versions of himself, witnessed the death of entire universes. And you can't win at golf. There's an episode where Jerry summons a Meeseeks, a creature literally designed to help anyone achieve any goal, and asks for help shaving 2 strokes off his golf game, not turning his life around, not being a better dad, 2 strokes off his golf game. When Morty needs real guidance, he goes to Rick. Not because he doesn't love you, but because you just don't have what he needs. Summer is more direct about it. In the camping episode, she sums it up in one line. Jerry only feels useful when the bar is low enough. There's no softening. No, but deep down she loves you, Dad. She just states it like a fact. And here's something that's gonna stick with you. Jerry admits that, unlike Rick, who's so hard to please that any approval from him becomes a massive achievement, he himself is so easy to please that nobody cares about earning it. He's so easy to satisfy that his satisfaction has no value. Sit with that for a second. Your kid's love would carry more weight if it were harder to earn. The fact that you're understanding, patient, loving, and accessible makes that love less valuable in their eyes. Not because they're bad kids, but because it's human nature to value what's hard to get. And then there's Jerry Bory, which deserves its own special mention, because it might be the cruelest thing that's ever happened to a character in this show. There's an episode where Rick finds out Jerry snuck onto the ship uninvited, and since he doesn't have time to take him back home, Rick drops him off at an interdimensional daycare, specifically built by some Rick from an alternate universe to park Jerry's, while the Ricks and Mortys go do things that actually matter. Somewhere in the multiverse, there is an entire facility specifically designed to store versions of you while your family does something important. And the part that goes beyond everything else. There's a room in Jerry Bory full of Jerrys whose Ricks and Mortys never came back. Abandoned Jerrys. They could leave. The door isn't locked. But they stay. Because they're Jerrys. And in a more recent episode, we find out that our Jerry, the Jerry we've been following for years, isn't even the original Jerry. He got accidentally swapped at Jerry Bory because Rick lost his ID chip number. For entire seasons, the family was bonding with the wrong Jerry. And nobody noticed. Not them. Not Jerry himself. Here's the thing that keeps me up at night thinking about a character from an adult cartoon. And yeah, I know how that sounds. There's a reading of Jerry through the philosopher Nietzsche, who had this concept called the last man. The man who made everything small, who doesn't seek greatness, doesn't take risks, doesn't want to grow, who just wants comfort, safety, and other people's approval. Nietzsche said the last man was the greatest danger to civilization. Not because he was evil, but because he was enough, because he chose the minimum and called it peace. And Jerry, when he gets access to a Meeseeks, a creature literally designed to help anyone achieve any goal, he asks for help shaving 2 strokes off his golf game. Not changing his life, not being a better father, not fixing his marriage. 2 strokes off his golf game. There's an episode where Jerry lived inside a reality simulation. Everything was fake and controlled. He didn't notice any difference. That's what makes Jerry unique as a character. He's not a villain. He's not lazy in a malicious way. He just doesn't have the drive that most people have to be more. And in a universe where his father-in-law has literally redefined the limits of what's possible for humanity, not having that drive makes you invisible. And this is the twist the show delivers with real craftsmanship. Jerry in the multiverse is something else entirely. In parallel universes, he becomes a famous actor. On Pluto, he's treated like a celebrity and a spokesperson. When humanity gets turned into monsters, he picks up a shotgun and starts fighting. In the Galactic Federation, he climbs the ranks fast. Jerry isn't incapable in every circumstance. He's incapable in this specific circumstance. In the modern world, in a family with Rick Sanchez, with the impossible standard of comparison that surrounds him. And you know what that means? It means Jerry's problem isn't Jerry. It's the context. It's that the universe he inhabits doesn't have room for the kind of person he is. And he never leaves. Because even though Jerry could be something else somewhere else, that somewhere else isn't here, and Jerry stays. For Beth. For the kids. Out of love. In that twisted, dependent, complicated way that Jerry manages to love, he stays, even knowing deep down that the cost of staying is never becoming who he could have been. That's what the writers did with Jerry Smith. They took a comedic punching bag and turned him into a statement about the cost of belonging, about what happens when you choose the right people but you're in the wrong place, about the quiet tragedy of being the ordinary man in an extraordinary story. So why does it suck to be Jerry Smith? Because you're smart enough to know you're mediocre, but not capable enough to change it. Because you married someone who loves you, but who, according to Rick himself, started loving you out of pity. And part of you can never completely rule that out, because you're the father of 2 kids who love you, but who've learned from the universe that a father's love isn't enough when the standard of comparison is the most capable man in the cosmos. Because the entire multiverse needed to build a daycare specifically to store you while important things happen. And when you were left there with nobody coming back, you could have walked out. But you stayed. Because in some parallel universe, you're exactly who you were supposed to be. But not this one. In this one, you're Jerry Smith, and you stay anyway. Good luck with that.